And hello, and welcome to Fortnightly Frontier, episode 6 of season 6. Yay!
Why do we even do
right.
seasons? I forget.
Well, I was gonna say that it sort of coincides with the way we restructure things around here, but then, that restructuring kind of continues for the next few episodes until it gets just fine.
How
just
many
nice.
episodes have we done in total?
Oh, over 100.
Yeah, because there's this thing with big podcasters, and they're like, you're still a beginner at podcasting until you've done your 100th episode. So I don't know anymore. Like how many episodes have we done? But
that is I don't know specifically how many, but I believe it is around 100.
Okay.
But since it's every 2 weeks, it doesn't really
That's what we're
you can't really
now.
you can't really get to a high enough number if your schedule is this infrequent.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Anyway, sorry, you can continue with the introduction.
Yeah. Continuing with the introduction, I am Darjanator, over there is Myre, and as I said before, this is the Fortnightly Frontier podcast where we discuss things related to and around and within Star Citizen and maybe even Squadron 42 if that tickles our fancy.
Sometimes,
yes. When there's news, there usually isn't. So,
which is a good thing.
Which is a good thing, yes. We don't want any spoilers. I mean, excuse me, I busted the nut when they showed that 1 hour Squadron 42 vertical slice.
I'm sorry. You're like,
yes.
You're like, excuse me, I busted it. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, serious.
Well, that is what busting the nut means around here. These here parts, you burp.
Right. Yes. Anyway.
But yeah, it's Star Citizen all the way today, and today we have. What's the topic for today?
Today we're talking about the roadmap that just got released last week on Friday. They finally released roadmap entries 3.7 and 3.8, and they've actually done a bit of a roll-up, mishmash, and refactoring of 3.5's roadmap and 3.6 as well. So this podcast, we decided to do something a little bit different. So people in chat will also be able to hop onto the roadmap themselves and participate. But what we're doing is I'm picking my top 3 things from the roadmap that I think that is just cool and I like the most. Darj is doing his as well, and then we're going to also have a little bit like not theory crafting, but we're also going to have like a bit of a personal thing as well, where I'm gonna be like, oh, I kind of want this to be in the roadmap and that kind of thing as well,
or just in the game,
Yeah.
And we haven't really discussed this beforehand, so we don't know what each other's lists are. So the list of things may be as short as 4, but could be as long as 8. We do know.
Mystery.
Oh, intrigue.
So, who wants to start first?
Shall we go alphabetically or by who's better looking? I think in both cases that means me.
Okay, all right then.
My third one first one from the bottom would be ZeroG push and pull.
Okay, that is for 3.8 ZeroG push and pull. That's a really interesting one, actually.
Yep, because currently, I think that the current system of EVA traversal just doesn't fit well with the rest of the technology in Star Citizen.
Mm-hmm.
It seems overpowered. Like the way you reach certain speeds and are able to maneuver, that would be quite a bit of strain on the human body at all times.
Right.
So I think a bit of help with your limbs to gain certain speed would be it would feel more natural, at least.
Yeah, I feel like maybe with this, it seems like at some point they're going to be refactoring how EVA works in the first place. The entry goes to say adding the ability for players to traverse surfaces in ZeroG by pushing and pulling with their hands. This will come into play in situations where the player isn't wearing an EVA suit with thrusters, or if the thrusters are turned off. So it's kind of insinuating that there might be a situation where you can turn off your EVA thrusters, but why would that be?
Or maybe run out of fuel.
Exactly, like in Helion, for instance. So maybe there will be a case where like we have to worry about EVA fuel as another like survival feature. So that's pretty interesting. I mean, I've seen games like Lone Echo and stuff do some really, really cool things with...
And Adrift as well.
And Adrift, yes. Do amazingly cool things with ZeroG push and pull and stuff. But with VR, I imagine that, you know, like things can be a little bit more immersive because you're moving your hands. But with things like Adrift, for instance, even without using VR, you can still see the character's arms grab things as you push and pull things with ZeroG. So I think that there's a good...
That was done very well.
It was.
The predictive nature of what you are supposed to be doing and how your character adapts to the environment was very well done. Yeah.
Yeah. Star Citizen does some really cool things with its like a locomotion IK in the first place, so I can see the animations.
Yeah. I was going to say inverse IK, but I in IK already stands for inverse.
And
so
K
inverse IK is just K.
Yes.
just K.
Just K, yeah. Star Citizen does just K. But Star Citizen does some really cool things with IK in the first place for its locomotion. So I can see some cool like animation integration done with this for that feature. That's a really cool first one. It wasn't part of my list, so
good.
Yeah.
We have more than 4 on this list. Then.
Yeah, I have
what's yours?
A backup list.
What's yours?
Mine. So I guess my first entry for the discussion would be, let me think of one that's interesting. How about the Harvestable Entity Spawning System for 3.6? So
what's that?
So in 3.6 it says underlining tech development to allow for an automated system to enable spawning harvestable entities on planets, moons, and asteroid fields.
Oh, so like crystal clusters and bushes of berries.
Yeah, so on the entry itself, it's a picture of a cactus. So I'm thinking this is the beginnings of science and exploration, basically. So like being able to go to these things and interact with them and put them in your inventory. So
or considering it's a cactus, it could be hallucinogens.
True, you know, like regardless of what it is, it's basically items in the verse that you can go you can interact with, and it's called a harvestable, and obviously, you know, it doesn't mean that it's farming per se, but that certainly sounds like it. But
well, it does something you can take and then grows back.
Yeah, exactly. So it's cool. It's basically hand mining as far as the game logic's concerned. But I thought it was a really cool feature because it kind of will add more in terms of things like missions and just I guess emerging gameplay as, you know, a researcher or a scientist or whatever as time goes on. So I thought that was a pretty interesting one.
Right, like getting an exotic culinary component for Chef Lando, for instance, is a mission type.
Exactly. Yeah,
like a root vegetable that only grows on a certain moon.
Yeah, like the Mr. Miyagi looking for a rare bonsai over a waterfall kind of deal. You're just like spending a lot of time looking for a rare piece of item. But yeah. So what's yours?
What's my second one?
Your second one, yes.
My second one would be the heat system.
Ah, the heat system. That was for, I believe it's 3.5 entry, isn't it? System heat. It is indeed.
It is, yes. Primarily because it is, it's a sort of a passive thing. It's because it's always in the background. It's not a specific gameplay thing. It's just like another layer of complexity to the universe that will add more. You know, it should be the basis of the weather system,
right?
But you know, it works from room temperature variations on a station to, you know, the how hot the star is, and what it does. And that's something that's missing. You know, other space games have it. Mass Effect had it, you know, in a very rudimentary fashion. No Man's Sky has it. You know, actually quite a well established mechanic. But yeah, Star Citizen needs it because it will add a certain need for preparation when you're going on a mission. Like, are you going into a super hot climate or a super cold climate? Because, you know, you have to remember, going to an ice moon is a lot more dangerous than just being in the vacuum of space where temperature is 0 just because of how heat works.
Yeah.
The heat transfer happens in 3 ways, and in space it only happens via radiation. But if you're on a nice moon somewhere with with a nice storm going, you're gonna freeze in seconds if you don't have a proper spacesuit, or a proper environment suit.
What I like
and on the other hand, like on the surface of Mercury, no way are gonna survive there.
That's very true, and that could lead to some really interesting survival, considerations as well. But what I like about this, and you mentioned it, is basically that it ties every single thing in the game that has to do with heat together. So all the way down from the component level on your ship, all the way to ambient temperatures and how they affect the player. Even the room system is part of this thing. So I'm imagining that you could even vent a room or something in order to to cool it down, perhaps, in the future, depending on where the heat is, and maybe there might even be heat gradients that you can let's say outside and space is cold, but something inside the ship is overheated. You might be able to to balance it that way, but vent the ship. It's
just vent the atmosphere of a ship. Possibly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's a really cool one, and a really good place to start for CIG as well. 3.5 is when that's coming in. With I guess everything else tied to it coming in later, things like how the ship's affected by the heat, for instance, and stuff. But so I guess that kind of ties into my second pick, which is something that's coming in, I believe, either 3.7 or 3.8. Yes, 3.7, and that is the new player status system. So I'll read what it says here. So the new player status system is it tracks the various well-being attributes of a character, including health, stamina, and oxygen levels. So that's what we currently have. That's what the player status on the Mobiglus is. So this will be expanded to include thirst, hunger, rest, inebriation, hygiene, and temperature. So
which is connected to the heat system.
Which is connected to the heat system, exactly. But what's interesting here in this entry is that it talks about thirst and hunger. These are survival features that don't exist in the game just yet and aren't mentioned in here either. I haven't checked the Squadron 42 roadmap, so I don't know if, hunger and thirst factor in there. But to have this here in this entry, does that mean that thirst and hunger and hygiene are coming in there? Or are they just going to be placeholder numbers and stuff until they then come in later on? Either way, I think that I'm just excited to see the Mobiglus change in terms of its design a little bit.
It's possible it'll be just placeholder systems that will be hard set to 100% at all times. And then once hunger and thirst and hygiene systems do come in, possibly, the hygiene one could possibly even be connected to the way, on a low level scale to was it wear and tear for weapons and ships, how textures change. So maybe just your skin gets dirtier and stuff like that. But how
do you measure butt stank?
Yeah, yes, exactly. I mean, do you get those black wavy lines over your head like in Peanuts? Flies flying around you, or
Yeah, I'm guessing in the future they may have a smellometer or something. You have these diodes in your pits and your crack. And,
sure. An NPC will be able to detect that because it's just code talking to code. But how do you tell a player that someone's wafting your way?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We'll have to wait and see exactly what entails for hygiene. But yeah, Lothar Mandrake in chat says, I'm nervous about these thirst and hunger, etc. things coming in. So many other games have screwed it up so bad, I don't want to spend more than 1% of my time in game dealing with that stuff.
And that has been addressed. That has been, addressed preemptively, because, everyone's aware that games that are basically just eating and drinking simulators are no fun. Like, you were playing Raft a while ago, and that to me just seems like you're always on the hunt for fresh water and fishing. And
same
just
with Atlas, yeah.
Yeah. when you are in a civilized area, in an outpost, or a mining colony, or even on a ship that is, your ship that has well stocked, what's larders? Is that the word?
Yes, larder.
Yeah, larder. Yeah. Then that mechanic just assumes you're always constantly well fed and nourished. But if you find yourself on a deserted planet, so away from any sort of means of replenishing your health or thirst and hunger, then that starts to come into play, and those survival mechanics will start becoming something you have to worry about.
Yeah, like there's no point. It's not gameplay if everything that you need to survive is readily available, and you just have to press the buttons to plug them into your face. But if you're like stranded on an island, away from your ship, away from everything else, that's when things start to become pertinent, and that's when they need to. That's when they get activated, or they will get activated. I think that's a very clever way of doing things. Like if you're in a situation where like everything is there for you, that you shouldn't need to have to do anything apart from maybe the hygiene aspect of things, because like there shouldn't be a point. Unless, of course, like you are a prisoner on someone's ship and you want a hunger strike or something. Otherwise, I can't think of a reason why you would need to waste your time doing those really basic survival things, especially when there are other survival things to keep in mind, like exposure, temperature, and all that kind of stuff anyway, which will, like I guess what I want to call higher order survival mechanics. But yeah, that's my second pick.
That was your second pick. And my first pick is what I believe is your first pick as well, unless you specifically wanted to avoid the obvious one. And it is the new flight model.
Ah, yes, the new flight model. I have a backup pick though.
You have a backup pick.
I have backup picks.
Right, so your primary pick is a diamond pick, and your backup picks are iron or stone, or... Oh wait, this is Minecraft.
Yeah, so I have a backup pick.
Yeah, the new flight model, people have been asking for it ever since 3.0 was supplanted or replaced. No, 2.6.3 was replaced by 3.0.
Yes.
Because everything changed. And nobody likes it, and it's even more broken now with 3.4, with ESP completely broken, and pips not pointing where they're supposed to point, and AI ships not flying at all.
It's a bit of a mess.
Times. It's a bit of a mess. Just a bit. Yeah. I love how it'll be a lot more natural to fly. And one of my favorite things is that finally we'll be able to adjust how much power you want assigned to the thrusters.
Right, yeah.
So if you set it to 5%, and then you just keep, tapping the thrusters, you won't, if you roll, you won't roll 90 degrees in, a fraction of a second, but, start turning slowly, start translating slowly, yeah.
Okay, I didn't realize that. So this entry is a pretty long-winded one, actually, and as far as the roadmap goes. Should I read it?
Sure, go for it.
So it says, initial implementation of all the new in-game flight control systems, incorporating a total overhaul to the entire flight experience. For a detailed look at this new system, check out the Principles of Flight panel from the CitizenCon 2948 on our YouTube channel. At a high level, this covers rebalanced thruster strengths for more momentum in flight, which I think you mentioned a second ago.
Even at their maximum power, they will not be as strong as they are now, because they are completely overpowered.
They're crazy powerful now,
But even then you will be able to reduce their strength. But that means for all thrusters, not just maneuvering ones, even the main ones.
Yes.
Let's continue.
Deeper integration with Item 2.0 systems, such as heat, power, and fuel. Okay, I thought maybe you wanted to add on to that.
Possibly, if well, if one of the next ones is also well, item system 2.0 needs an addition at least for health and wear and tear.
Right.
So
Okay.
I don't know if that's connected or not, but yeah.
Okay. A redesigned throttle for more direct control. Redesigned.
I think that's connected to what I'm talking about.
Right.
The throttle, yeah. You're basically
5% in, 5% out, basically, like you mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, or I'm struggling to remember just how the new throttle works for like you push forward and it accelerates at the percentage of power that you assign it to.
Okay.
And then when you let go, it immediately stops thrusting forward, no matter what speed you achieved.
Right.
Because right now, if you're, I'm just looking at this from a keyboard and mouse perspective. You know, you W and S basically control, let's say, cruise control in a car. You just set what speed you want it to go, and then the ship accelerates to that point, and then stops accelerating when it reaches it. So that's going to be completely the other way around. It'll be basically as if you're indecoupled, but not indecoupled.
Right. And the next one is redesigned afterburner and cruise mode. I believe they mentioned that there is no difference anymore between afterburn and cruise. They're more or less the same thing, right?
Yeah. Well, boost will now be afterburner.
And cruise will just be wherever you leave it at.
Yeah. Well, along your forward speed vector, there's a notch, which is your what is now SCM, and you have the ability to lock it there, so your ship won't accelerate past it. But if you don't have it there, basically, if you keep accelerating, you will just keep accelerating past that speed until you reach your max cruise speed.
Right.
So so cruise will basically be more like what it was in 2.6.3.
Okay. Redesigned ESP algorithm. My God. I hope that they do this one right.
Hopefully from the ground up.
Yes.
Because there's nothing about the current ESP algorithm that merits keeping it around.
So ESP stands for Enhanced Stick Precision, which is supposed to basically allow the ship to be a little bit more granular and slower when you're closer to a target. So
how are you able to pronounce that word so smoothly?
Practice.
If you don't know, I have quite a bit of a problem with saying the word granular.
It's for me. It's digital.
I have to It's what? Which one?
Digital, but I'm doing it okay. And processing, but I'm doing that okay as well today. I don't know. I'm having a good day. Let's see. So hopefully they get that correct and it works well. The next one is a new Gravlev handling.
New Gravlev handling. Oh right, yeah, that's for stuff like the Nox and the Dragonfly. So,
getting that to work, basically.
It actually kind of works now as well.
Yeah,
but it'll be even more refined.
Yeah, so getting it to feel more like a space bike and less like something that's just kind of in there and working. I guess giving it more character, giving it more feel. And lastly, numerous bugs and issues solved with previous flight models. So the previous flight model has a lot to be desired, leaves a lot to be desired. And hopefully, with the completely the gutting out and the putting in of a whole new flight model, hopefully a lot of those old bugs will no longer surface. Of course, there'll be new bugs, but hopefully those old ones will be gone, and we won't see those again. But yeah, so that's the new flight model.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, attached to how the thruster power thing, one of the nicest things about it is, like, if you're hovering above a moon or a planet or anything that has a gravitational pull towards you, your bottom firing thrusters will be fighting to keep you hovering.
Yeah.
But at some point down the slider, you get to a power level where that equalizes.
Okay.
And if you drop it just a little bit more, you will slowly start to descend, just ever so slightly, just because, you're telling the thrusters so you don't have to push down and then stop, push down and then stop, push down and stop. Just slowly, drop down to the ground like a leaf on the wind, and then get speared through the chest.
I think it's still too soon.
Still too soon?
Lothar Mandrake, thank you for the sub gifts, by the way. Thank you. All right, so that
also,
was...
I wanted to address Lothar. What you talking about, Willis? This podcast has been going on for years. So don't you be congratulating that doofus over there for bringing me on. This is my show, damn it.
Lothar's new, come on.
Okay.
But thank you so much for your support. All right,
it's much appreciated.
It really is. Darge sees none of the money.
Yeah, and considering all the work I put in, I'm starting to think whether it's worth it or not.
Oh, man. So that was, I guess that was our joint one, but I'll give you that one and I'll change my first one to something that Aaron Roberts actually brought up in the RTV last week on Friday as well, and that is security systems. And then that is for 3.8. And it goes, the security system controls who has access to areas and objects based on various factors such as reputation, ownership, keycards, and faction. It'll automatically issue warnings to people breaking the law, and if ignored, will flag them as criminals to security forces. The security forces for that particular region, not just like everywhere, I suppose. Yeah. And I'm thinking that this might actually kind of bring an end to armistice zones as we know them. Because
he did mention that they will be called something
green
like green
zones. Yes,
yeah.
Aaron Roberts specifically mentions the word green zone, which is not mentioned anywhere else in any other Star Citizen.
I suppose it'll have a new name, or it's maybe slated for much further along the line. But that has been planned from the very beginning. The armistice zones have always been meant as a temporary stopgap measure until they have the criminality system in.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to seeing exactly how that works and how that will work. I like the idea of ownership keycards, faction-based ownership as well. Like factions will be coming in the future, like NPC guilds and stuff, and being able to use their facilities if you are a member of them. I believe they mention NPC guilds will work in a similar fashion to Dark Souls Covenants, in that you have to sign up and then you get all the benefits of being part of that.
Or like in Skyrim, like if you're part of the Hand.
Yes, exactly. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, just the ability to not have your all your weapons automatically become completely defunct when entering a certain area would be nice.
Indeed.
Like you can even punch anybody. How is an armistice zone meant to stop these guns?
So yeah, exactly. And well, not those guns specifically, but anyway. And Erin mentioned that you'll be able to bring weapons out, and the guards should be able to react accordingly. So I think that's some really interesting stuff. But actually, they mentioned the close combat. Speaking of guns, close combat is slated for 3.7.
Oh yeah.
So
karate chop. I wonder if you have to say that every time you smack somebody in the neck.
Oh, no. Hassan Chop, not Karate Chop.
Yes. Hassan Chop?
Hassan Chop is from Looney Tunes, I think.
Yeah, it's from one of the most famous Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck cartoons. Yeah. They raid. I think it's called the Arabian Nights. They raid the famed cave that opens and closes with the keyword sesame seeds or something like that.
I remember. I actually have some notes on this last one. I wrote, because I can't remember exactly what I was thinking at the time. In RTV, Aaron mentioned that Green Zone is in a thin list of tasks that the teams are more or less certain to So in RTV, Aaron mentioned that all that we see right here are just more or less a thin list of all the tasks that they know that they're going to be able to complete by the end of the year. So last year we had a whole bunch of, I guess, issues where a feature would be it's slated for a certain quarter, and then it would be shift, moved, and shuffled. Aaron is saying that for the most part, everything that we see here for 3.5, 6, 7, and 8 are more or less hardwired in, and they are pretty certain that they're going to be able to do all these things. And that we should look to seeing maybe by the end of Q2, maybe by the end of Q3 or 4, things to be added as opposed to be removed this year. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I guess I'm looking forward to not being disappointed as much as maybe we were last year.
So they've sort of re-engineered the roadmap to be slightly less fluid, with some features quite cemented in for it.
Yes, I guess maybe it's less ambitious, even though at the same time it doesn't seem that way. There's a lot coming in, but it's they've sat down for longer, which is why it's only taken until now for 3.7 and 8 to show up.
And I guess this approach is better than promising the world and then delivering an asteroid.
So one thing I forgot to mention, and I guess we're still on the flight model, but so Aaron mentioned in the RTV as well that this new flight model is actually going to have significant performance gains over the current flight model that we currently have. Yeah,
that's good.
So he said that it's going to have further knock-on effects in the future for things like large-scale multi-ship battles. So hopefully that'll make things like large-scale multi-ship battles in the future, and once server meshing and stuff comes in, a lot better as well. So looking forward to that.
Any system that increases performance is welcome.
Exactly. Yeah. So that is those were our 3.
Well, I don't think you said yours.
Yeah, I did. Security systems.
Oh right, yeah, sure.
So
was the flight system on your primary list?
It was indeed my primary.
It was.
Yes.
It is. I think it's everyone's primary. It's funny how we didn't mention any of the assets. It's all gameplay and.
Yeah, well, I mean, gameplay is one thing that we're sorely lacking in Star Citizen. I mean, like it's one of those things.
We have ships. We have weapons. We have quite a bit of actual content at this point.
Yeah. So, lastly then, what would you like to see in the roadmap or just in the game altogether? Because Aaron did mention that things are being worked on under the rug, basically. Like things like server meshing are coming in, as well as other features that are being designed for Squadron 42 that may surface for Star Citizen when they're ready. But what would you like to come in the game?
How to say this? Basically, FPS stealth mechanics.
FPS stealth mechanics. That was actually in the roadmap at one point, but it disappeared.
It's still in for AI, but not for players. I mean, I'm not talking, just dressing for, to better camouflage yourself in the environment, or, just crouching and walking slowly, because basically that we already have, but some sort of system that would tell you how well you're camouflaged, like in Thief
style,
or Thief.
Okay,
those like Thief was an amazing game when it came to stealth.
Right.
You had water arrows for dousing lights, and you had to. You were given a certain tool set to enable your characters to sneak about more effectively.
Right.
So maybe something like a 30th century version of a ghillie suit. They did say that there will be no such thing as a proper, cloaking device, like a proper cloaking device. But maybe something like a chameleon suit that changes colors based on its environments.
Okay.
Or, just maybe some way to dampen the noise you're making, or to have an indicator of how much noise you're making.
Going all Harry Potter on this Star Citizen thing here with that cloak. But like, I think stealth is one of those weird things that's very hard to get right, which is why they're not doing with it in the first place. Like, NPC stealth is easy enough, you know, you got like that eye thing, and if they see you, they see, if they don't, they don't. But with players, things get a bit more complicated because then it's all about the individual perceptiveness of the actual player themselves. And like one person might be able to see like the shimmer of a character, whereas somebody else may not be able to see them at all. And then again, it also depends on their rig and what they have, you know, rendering in and what they don't, and that kind of thing as well.
Right. Like for every time, every game that I played so far, if you are in view of an NPC, they will be able to see you, no matter what you do. But I've seen several certain images of, you know, basically, can you spot him? For instance, you know, that was the tagline, and it was basically hunters in camouflage gear, properly positioned against their background.
Right.
And it takes you minutes to be able to see the person standing in front of a wall just because of the way they're dressed.
Right.
If you transpose that into a game, an NPC will be able to see you because to them you're basically just a person in front of a wall. They don't see color. They don't see the interaction.
Sorry, go on. You were making a serious point.
They don't see chromaticity. Is that better?
Fine, that'll do.
They don't see interaction of shadow and light and texture with the surroundings. So if something is perfectly camouflaged but not hiding behind something, and you know, computer characters will still be able to see them because, you know, that's not the way they perceive the world. It's basically just, you know, objects to them.
Right. That's fair enough.
So, you know, that's sort of stealth. I mean,
yeah. I'd like to see, like, this isn't my suggestion, but like in terms of stealth, or I guess in terms of content, I'd love to see more Where's Wally style screenshots in the subreddit. Like, you know, can you spot the character? How many players do you see in this scene? I guess it'd be a good way of showing off like exactly how stealthy these suits are. End of the day, though, as far as stealth mechanics are involved in an MMO, a PC MMO, it's very difficult. But if it was, for instance, like a console game where everybody's using the exact same hardware, it's much easier than for you to say that, you know, player stealth mechanics will work better because everybody has the exact same thing. There is no like tweaking the graphic settings so that you can and can't see somebody better by turning the foliage on and off. It's, you know, like I can see where you're coming from with it, but I think that certain people will always be at an advantage and others at a disadvantage.
Yeah, well, then just let's hope that the way CI continues developing the engine, lowering the graphical quality won't let you, you know, remove the tall grass that giving somebody, you know, a perfect hiding spot, but you're able to see them just because, you know.
That'll all depend on the LODs as well. But yeah. So my last addition is, I guess it's tied into the flight model, and it's one that I thought of today when I was flying with an Anvil Hawk in New Horizons Raceway, and that is, those racetracks have been there for years, and they've sat through multiple iterations of the flight model, and I think that they're far outdated. And when we get the new flight model, will those ships still be able to fit in the racetrack in the same way? If you know what I mean, like in terms of how they handle, you know, like I feel like the racetracks need to be refactored to fit the flight model instead of trying to like fit the flight model into the racetrack, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah. Well, I doubt that the new flight model is being engineered with those 3 racetracks in mind.
No, exactly. Which is
we'll see how it performs when it's in, I'm sure you'll be taking many a ship into the racetracks and just seeing how well the new momentum based travel um, is capable of handling those sharp turns. Like, I severely doubt that most ships will be able to take that first sharp right after the first checkpoint. To cut across and below the buildings towards the second checkpoint. You will have to go along the long way around, the way it was intended to.
Yeah.
Maybe the bespoke racing ships with their, powerful maneuvering thrusters. And I believe that is what's it's going to be the main differentiation between a normal ship and a racing variant of the ship is just how powerful the maneuvering thrusters are at that point.
I mean, I guess maybe not at full pelt. I mean, like at top speed, maybe not, they won't work, but I guess I'm all for like having to be able to control your ship better in order to be better as a racer. Like there have been times with the flight model where you just had the afterburner on and then you'd be able to just go on a rail and do the racetrack, and that's not
I remember
really fun
that,
for anybody. Yeah.
That's when I was able to get the Avenger under 50 seconds.
And whilst that was, I guess, more accessible to everybody, it wasn't necessarily the most involved kind of gameplay you could possibly get for racing in general.
Like, and if you take a comparison to real life racing, like race prepared cars are beasts.
Yeah.
Lightweight, no comforts, no creature comforts, and the connection between the drivetrain and the driver is raw. There's no damping, so it's super direct and quite uncomfortable. So that is how racing is supposed to be. You shouldn't be able to race with a luxury like a 300i. Is like the 350R has always struck me as a weird choice for a racing ship, because the original it's like taking a BMW 7 Series, which is a car that CEOs are chauffeured in, and using that to go racing. It just doesn't happen.
The moment you bring up car names and car models, my eyes glaze over.
Yeah, your eyes just glaze over. Yeah, I know.
But you mentioned the 350 series. Well, we'll have to wait and see exactly what the rework for that is going to look like. And that's actually going to be coming in with the new flight model. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. Glow says in chat, I hope that this is the last major flight change for a while. It's difficult to relearn all the new controls. And that's fair enough. I mean, like, there are iterations of it. I just hope that this is going to be a stable first iteration of this new flight model. They can add and change things to it.
It will change. They'll tweak it based on community feedback. But as far as like a groundbreaking change, hopefully it is the last, at least for a while.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But yeah, I mean, otherwise, I'm really looking forward to seeing everything coming in. Those were my top picks, but I'm super excited for a lot of other things, like being able
female characters.
Definitely one. The character DNA system, making my character look more like myself, and seeing everybody else's character. Seeing everybody else's creativity, basically. Being able to heal other people.
And we'll have a huge spectrum of that. We'll have people that make characters that look like real life celebrities, and people that look like them. And there will also be people who just for the lulz make the ugliest people imaginable. And
guilty.
No, you dress like that because you have no sense of style. I mean, people who intentionally, go for the bulgy eyes and long noses and stuff like that. I'm talking about in-game, you mustard and ketchup armor-wearing fiend.
Oh man, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the images that people will take of like 50 different people, players standing in one place and not a single face looking the same as another. I think it's going to be
awesome.
really, really,
and it's
really
going to
cool.
be a very efficient system as well, because it's only just it's still. It's a few, but still just a few bytes that need to be transferred to tell every client what you look like.
Yeah, I hope that face over IP, which is getting some fixes as well for 3.5, I'm really hoping that it is in a good way as well, because what I would love to do is organize like maybe 25 to 50 people that all stand like a school photo, all with face over IP smiling, all looking, and then take a picture and put it up. I think that because I'm a nerd. But yeah.
Because you're a nerd. And there's other stuff. I mean, everything. There's not a one single thing that I'm not looking forward to. I mean, there's a few things that are really low on my list, like new ship weapons. It's like I'm struggling to get myself to care about new ship weapons. There's just so many already. You know, diversity is great. You know, and there are a lot of people that put a lot of thought into what sort of weapon is the best for what they're gonna do, but I'm just then gonna go to one of those websites and look it up.
Right.
I'll let them do the hard work.
Oh man. So I think that concludes our choices and stuff for the new roadmap. So You opened the podcast. I think it's your turn to wrap it up as well, right?
That's not how it works.
Is it not?
Because you made me close. Yes, last episode because you started it. So
what if I told you
close it?
What if I told you there was no method to my madness?
Is there madness to your method, though?
There is indeed. So with that, this has been the Fortnightly Frontier podcast featuring Darjanator and myself, Myre. We've been talking about the Star Citizen roadmap and the changes therein. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you've been watching on YouTube, please feel free to join the conversation as well in the comments. Feel free to like and subscribe and hit the bell and all that stuff for future podcast entries as well. This is the Fortnightly Frontier, but we're now doing podcasts pretty much every week. We have a special guest coming in very soon. We have maybe 2 special guests coming in the next a couple weeks or so. They're special. They're also NDA, and so we can't really divulge any more information about that. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you in the verse.
In the verse.